Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. And we've got second round NBA playoff action here. The first series to kick off on Saturday. Going to have the Nuggets and the T-Wolves. Maybe a little preview of the finals winner here, essentially. But we'll take a look at some best bets in this video. Also going to have player props up specifically for this one as well, as it's the only game on Saturday. So continue to follow along, subscribe to that page, and we'll be bringing you both these videos throughout the rest of the playoffs. Also, head to thelines.com and use everything that we have up on the site right now. Already know that Nate, Mo, and Eli both have a couple of really good articles up there about how to look at some of these series prices here in the next round coming up. We'll have the Knicks and the Pacers on Sunday. But that's all for now. Let's go ahead and jump right into Saturday's game here, Nate, and talk about your first best bet for Nuggets and T-Wolves.
Yeah, I'm going to take the first half over 101.5 points. I mean, looking at over stuff for the game, and I think it's live, but it's interesting. Like there's apparently been some heavy, sharp money on the under, and books are confident enough to keep the number where it is, around 208 for the game. But I think first half is definitely the trend that I want to take here, especially with the Wolves on the road. I mean, they scored 4 more a game on the road, actually, in the first half versus at home. They averaged 58 points per game, the same number against Denver this season in the first half. And Denver just gave up, 57 a game in the first half to the Lakers, despite the Lakers only shooting 31%. And last year, the Wolves only shot 31% in this playoff series, and they got to about 55 a game. Denver scored 56 a game despite poor shooting. So, like, everything I'm saying is, like, they're going to be vulnerable in the paint from jump, because that's just the way Joker is, as far as, like, he's not, they gave up the most paint points in round 1. Lakers were able to pound the paint. That's where the Wolves want to attack too. Of course, we got Ant going right to the rim against KCP, who is a bit smaller than him. And the Nuggets are content to just kind of like trade buckets early, because they know you're not stopping us. Like, you're as good as Rudy Gobert is, brother, he has 47. Jokic has his number. He's going to be scoring. We get extra rest for Jamal Murray to heal up that calf. He has a 126 offensive rating when he has at least 2 days rest this season. The Wolves for an entire game average 115 on the road versus 110 at home, and the defensive rating is worse. And free throws are going to be is what I'm looking at for the entire game here. But I mean, it should be a trend early on as well. But the Suns generated 34 free throw attempts a game against this Wolves defense, which was just overly aggressive, which is going to get burned. Yeah, honestly, if you're just overly aggressive against a Denver team, expecting them to turn the ball over or make a mistake, like Jokic is just going to be passing it right over your head. So the Suns shot 40% in their home games from deep in that series. And so I don't know necessarily how it's going to play out down the stretch in the second half. It could slow down for sure, and you wind up getting the under for the game. But I think early on, like, I trust both teams to be around 50 points in this first half. The Wolves have been doing that very consistently. I think each game with the Suns went well over this total, and the Nuggets all 3 or 4 with the Lakers definitely went over this total, because they were trailing every time at the half, and they're just like, it's fine, we'll get you later.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I don't know that they're going to have the same level of, like, lax in the early parts of the game that they might have had with the Lake Show. I don't know what else to attribute things to other than playing with food. Like, I still don't think that the Lakers were ever in jeopardy of winning, I'll say, against that Nuggets team in the series. Like, it was those moments in the third quarter more than anything, I think. And that's actually also where the T-Wolves were incredible, was the third quarter against Phoenix in a lot of those games. And sometimes they would already have come back in the second, but they also spend a lot of the third quarter building up those leads to kind of not even make the fourth interesting. So I have zero issue. I would definitely take no issues with an over in this one. I'm more talking about sort of I think the speed of the game for Denver actually does slow down a little bit in that third quarter, where they're just like, we've got this. And as long as we just play at our pace, we're going to get to our spots, do everything at our own pace, essentially. So I love the first half to be a little bit more fast paced and a little bit more scoring than the second one, to be honest, as you clearly feel the same way. Otherwise you would maybe felt a little bit better about the whole game. So I'm going to start with an SGP. And I'm just going to encapsulate two guys who I love both their props in this series repeatedly, which is going to be Joker points. I think this should already be at 29.5 for the opening game, and I think they would have gotten people to take the over on it. I'm not going to lie to you. This is like if Joker's taking 23 shots in a game, then I'm listening, right? Like when some people take 23 shots, I'm like, that I don't care. I'll still take an under. But when it's this guy, yeah, there's no way that I can feel like I'm going to take an under. And I still put him at the 23 to 24 shots. Like we have enough of a sample size of him playing this team where it's not just that he's like focused on the points. I think there is obviously something to the idea that this Timberwolves defense, as far as the assists, is going to be tough to go by. So I didn't say the SGP yet real quick. Joker, 25 plus points. Cat, to just get his core rebound prop, 8+ rebounds, which it's at 7.5. And I'm taking both of those together for plus 174 on DraftKings is a really good number that I love here. And it is a little bit better than on FanDuel as well. I would check a couple others if you have another book, but 174 on DK was where I was able to get it. And just finishing the Joker points thing, like I actually just think it's also in part because the assists aren't quite there as much. And even like tip-ins and easy buckets like that he's also like, sometimes I'll just get 8 points off of tip-ins. Like that's not there nearly as much either. So that's sort of the game theory I'm using moving forward is like, I don't feel great. Like if you see Jamal Murray to lead the series in assists or something like that, that would be for good money, the way that it was in the finals last year. That would be more along the lines of how I see Denver playing offense as well. As you see them like really just leave Rudy on an island, the Timberwolves do. And to the point you're making, the beginning of the story of Brother I Have 47 is Rudy waving off a double team for that's coming to help him with Joker. And he's like, no, I got it. He's like, bro, you don't got it at all. I already have 50 points. And that's going to be the case moving forward, is that they are going to keep that single coverage on him. We saw that all series. And that's just a huge reason why you don't get those assists. Timberwolves incredible at limiting assists because they have 5 of the best defensive players at their position all on one team in a starting lineup. And I include Cat in that number now, as he was, I'm not going to call him a top 5 defensive player at his position necessarily, but I'll call him like top 10, top 15. Like Cat has been a really, really good defender this year in a way that I think went unnoticed for a while. And then it was a little bit more noticed when they were a little bit worse on defense with him out this season for a couple weeks, rather than worse on offense. So that's Joker in a nutshell. But Cat for me down low is going to be so crucial. And I know we're going to talk about Naz Reid, and I think he's already been somewhat of a popular pick because, people who are in tune with what's been going on with the Timberwolves in last series and in this playoffs are aware that it wasn't Naz Reid's series. And more than anything, it wasn't like Naz played badly or was forced to the bench for anything other than that's not the matchup. They needed both Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Jaden McDaniels on the floor to guard the Suns' 3, and that was the result was really poor shooting from the Suns. But the Nuggets don't rely on that, right? We know they love to go into the paint. That's a part of the whole conversation around this series, and the preview of it is like you need to be big against Denver because Aaron Gordon is a consistent mismatch, and Michael Porter Jr. is also 6'9", 6'10", probably 6'10", 6'11" at this point as well, since he came in the league at like 19 and was 6'9". But so either way, like I think for Cat, it's going to be really important that he's down low. It has been. We've seen his rebound chances damn near the same as Rudy's in multiple games, and even the rebound chance success rate for Cat much better than Rudy. All unsurprising numbers when you look at Rudy boxing out Jokic and vice versa, and then everybody else being like, all right, well, let's get in there and crash, right? And that's really been Cat's thing, is he's now the second, let's call him third best rebounder on the floor. Like he is a little bit better than Aaron Gordon, especially because Aaron Gordon is used as a little bit more of a versatile guy to play out further away from the basket as well. And I just think it's really interesting too that we actually saw Ant guarding Aaron Gordon and vice versa at times, right? They actually were a matchup for a number of different games this season, which means now you're talking about like somebody like MPJ guarding Cat, or at least being responsible for boxing him out. And I think he's an underrated rebounder at times because everyone just thinks of him as a shooter. But at the same time, like Cat's going to eat him alive down there. So the 8+ boards, I can see this getting up to 8.5, 9.5 by the next game or two, and us losing this 7.5 number for Cat. Like I think at times, like you could have put this at 6.5 if you were just blind to why Cat wasn't getting as much time or stuff in the last series. Then you would think that this should be at like 6.5 and you'd be off. But 7.5 is still, I think, a valuable number for us to go over.
Yeah, I mean, he was guarding a lot of Durant last series, right, which brings him out away from the basket at times. And in this series, yeah, I mean, he might get some time on Joker with Rudy in the help position. He's going to be either way, right? I mean, he's going to be down low when he's out there. And I mean, yeah, he had double in 4 of the 5, I think, in the playoffs last year against this team. Roster hasn't changed. The way they played has changed a little bit, but yeah, it seemed like an extremely low rebounding prop for Cat. And Joker, I mean, you don't need to convince me that he's going to score 25 points, especially in a matchup where Jamal Murray is going to be hounded like 90 feet and made to have to prove that he is healthy enough with that calf to make something happen. And I know it's going to be much tougher sledding for him than it was against the Lakers, who he just kills. And I think Joker had to play the Wolves at least twice this season without Jamal and figure out how to score with that extra attention. So, I mean, he can get it done regardless. And that's why I'm taking Nuggets fourth quarter spread minus 0.5 because of the Joker. And I don't understand why you don't have to pay for like minus 1.5. I mean, the scenario, I guess, is if the Wolves are down and they start putting it on in the fourth, and they if they're down kind of big, like not necessarily blowout situation, but they're down 8 and they come on aggressive and make it a game, and then they win the fourth quarter that way. But if it's a situation where the Nuggets have to win in the clutch, like I need the Wolves to prove to me that they are in the same league. Like they were 27th in net rating in the clutch. Nuggets were obviously first, and post All-Star break, the numbers widened more. The Wolves had a 97 offensive rating. Denver was 134, best in the league. They won every single fourth quarter in the playoffs against this team last year. Although the first one was a tie because it was a complete blowout. That scenario I'm talking about. But then, yeah, they win. They came back 22-16 to force OT in the last game in Minnesota, and the two other games in Denver, they outscored them by 7 points per game. They dropped 35 in the fourth quarter. Cat was a nice minus 26 in the fourth quarter in that series. Cat was a minus 48 in the last 5 against Memphis the year prior, as they lost 5 straight fourth quarters to the Memphis Grizzlies. So, I mean, Denver in the fourth, we just saw them do that. If you can find an entire second half line, that might be interesting. Because it does kind of balance the fact that the Wolves have a better bench than the Nuggets, and I think end of third, start of fourth, they might be able to make up some gap there if Jokic gets a little bit of a blow. But I mean, when the chips are down, like obviously we want to take the Nuggets here, and if you can get them minus 0.5 versus 4.5 on the game spread, I say we take it.
Yeah, the main advantage to me is that the Nuggets have an unstoppable, identity in the fourth quarter and in the most crunchiest of crunch times. And the Minnesota offense can Ant get us through this, right? That's a huge part of the fourth quarter, to where like you're going to think like the Nuggets are pretty much in every game going into the fourth quarter, unless they're down by like more than 20, like 20 or more. They just have that ability to just grind you to death. And they usually start that grind in the third quarter, which is what I was saying a minute ago, where they usually are able to at least like keep things a little bit more in their pace in the third quarter, which is a little bit more impactful for the total. I think either way for the fourth quarter stuff, like you can consistently take them without the fear of this, the game being over in the third, the way that it was at times, even when the Nuggets would be losing at the half. By the end of the third in that last series, you were like, oh, okay, well, they're back firmly in control. This is good to go, except for the one they lost. So yeah, I think the fourth quarter is going to be where they'll probably shine and maybe end this thing in 6. So let's talk about the series prices for a minute, because I want to see what would be your preferred bet. But I think for me, like, I'm fine with either Nuggets money line or Nuggets to win the series, right? You get that like minus 179. I just want to make sure I get that number right. Series winner,
no,
minus 205. You got that?
Yeah,
no, you can get 205. You can get minus 205 for them to just win straight up. So, I mean, I rarely will be like take the 1 to 2 on your money, but like it's not worth it for me over the course of a series. You might as well just money line that stuff back to back to back for the Nuggets, and you'll make way more money just on the money line repeatedly, right? Even with a 4.5 point spread here, which I don't expect it to get too much bigger for either side throughout this series. And in fact, it could be a little bit bigger for the Nuggets. So I think I'll take the juicier bet though, and take the Nuggets here minus 1.5 on the series to win in 6 essentially, and still get about plus 1. I want to make sure I'm getting that right. Plus 140. What is it for them now? Plus 115. So can you get better than that? Yeah, I'm still trying to shop around. Things are changing, man, for these series prices too, repeatedly as people bet and like the total or the spreads in each game fluctuate. But I think the plus 115 that I'm seeing here is still a good number. And if you obviously get it better than that, go for it for the series price. But I think in general, like I don't know that home court advantage is a true thing here. I think that's indicated in this first spread, which is like, I mean, if you give 3 points for a home court advantage in the NBA, then this spread here to open the series at -4.5. I guess, do you think the Nuggets do you think they're only 1.5 point better on a neutral floor than the T-Wolves? Probably adds up, but I think you could still give them a couple more points there. So I think you're already getting a little bit of juice before, like a little bit of value on this before game one occurs. And I can't see the Nuggets coming out slow at home in game one, to be perfectly frank. Now, I think that the T-Wolves will come out like dynamite as well, which is another reason I enjoy the first half over that you're talking about. Both teams to be really sharp and really be bringing the energy in game one to open it and try to get a hold of the series. But if it does go up 1-0, I mean, we've got 2 games this year where there was the last game of the series, though, of the season series, I don't care about as much. Denver was at home, but there was like not a lot of guys that were missing in the April 10th game that they played. But that was a loss for the Timberwolves there by about 9 points. And like I said, a lot of guys out. But that everything else is interesting that Minnesota wins on the road, then Minnesota loses at home. They win at home, right? So I don't think there's too much real home court advantage in that sense, unless you buy into the Denver home court advantage. With that said, whoever goes up first, like I think Denver is a lot more likely to steal one in Minnesota because of that quote unquote Denver home court advantage. I don't give too many edges on too many things, except for the offense for the Nuggets can run way more like a well-oiled machine than the Timberwolves. And so the ceiling for me is still just like much higher for what the Nuggets can accomplish versus the Timberwolves.
Yeah, and I think there's a great way to just hedge this, where if you're going to take Nuggets in 6, if you take over 5.5 games total, and it's -160, but yeah, I mean, you're still cashing that if it's the Nuggets who win in 6, and you're cashing that if the Wolves happen to win in 6 or 7, or Nuggets in 7, right? So you're just basically banking on this not being another 5-game series, that the Nuggets cannot dispatch this team so easily, and it would be truly shocking if the Wolves were able to knock the champs out in 5. I mean, I think they're due for like a little bit of initial shock. I know they're probably bracing for it, but like, this ain't the Phoenix Suns. Like, they're not just going to roll over and die. Like, you're going to have to absolutely execute at a ruthless level over the course of 6-7 games to beat this Nuggets team, and then vice versa. Like, I think this Nuggets, they're going to be like, this ain't the Wolves from last year, who they admitted gave them a lot of trouble, but like Ant is that dude now, and he might be, in stretches, he might be the best player on the floor, the best scorer on the floor. Jokic obviously controls the game in different ways, but like, I'm not betting against Ant at this point to not at least make things interesting and keep these games close. So I think over 5.5 is a very good safe bet. And I mean, I guess I'd lean Nuggets to win in 6. I don't have a problem picturing them closing it out in Minnesota. Like you're saying, I agree totally with the home court not being a huge factor here, although it kind of is when you're in Denver, right? I mean, they do have that extra one, but it should be fun to watch, and I think we get at least 6 games.
Yeah, if you have, there's a couple of ways to play. Like, if you pick a team to win in 7, that kind of thing, then if you want to pick one of them to win in 7 because you're so sure of it going 7, and you can't really see the Nuggets losing on their home floor. But really, for these series prices between two teams that are pretty evenly matched, without getting much edge or juice on either way, without getting too specific about the bet, you might as well, like I said, roll over your money line for whichever team you think is going to win this series in general, and they'll get you that money back at the very least, if not make you some decent profits. So that is all the time we have for you in this one. I know we're going to talk about Jaden McDaniels a lot more. We didn't even mention him because he wasn't in the series last year. He's a lot more featured in player props when we're talking about how that's going to affect a lot of different players in this series. So definitely want to check out player props. That one's up alongside these best bets, bringing you those each and every day now through the rest of this postseason. So till we see you next, happy betting.